Everybody, Kyle Austin, Matt Wenzel here with MLive.com on your National Signing Day, your National Early Signing Day, whatever we're calling it these days, December 20th. After Michigan State signed 20 players, national letters of intent, talked to Mark D'Antonio and pretty much his entire assistant coaching staff. So some questions for you about this year's class. I guess, first of all, this was really, Mark D'Antonio, I think several times used the phrase, no drama today. These were the 20 verbal commits. They had them all, I think, within 3 hours this morning. And no one really knew how this signing day would go because you've still got your regular signing day in February. It seems like a lot of programs across the country have several players kind of waiting for that. Michigan State wanted all of its guys, and it really got them, and that seems to be a little bit unique this year.
Yeah, I mean, this all speaks to the way this class was recruited and having these guys in the fold for a while, and they really just set it up to be this way. I mean, Mark was asked about it back in October, I think, and he said he expected everybody to sign on signing day. They had a couple more after that fact, or one or more, two more, I think. But he said it last week again, and he expects everybody to sign, and they did. So I really don't think it could have gone any better for them. I mean, you could always say, well, you could have had more higher ranked recruits or whatever you want to say, but the guys they identified, the guys they liked, the guys they offered a scholarship, accepted a commitment from, were all signed by 10:22 this morning, I think it was. So, I mean, barely over 3 hours. It was over with, and you got to stand up there and talk about them. There was no waiting for the fax machine to buzz with whoever's letter coming in from wherever.
No Malik McDowell situations this year. And then they'll look to add, it sounds like, a couple more, particularly defensive linemen, in the regular period, which will start in February. But I think you're right. For the most part, they have the core of their class here and what they want. So question two, you know, if any of you guys have ever watched the signing day press conference, today we went over an hour, I think, and they go through every guy, and you would think after watching that every single guy is going to be an all Big Ten player, you know, that 4 or 5 of them are going to win the Heisman, because, you know, it's their day, it's to be excited about them, and you're going to highlight their strengths, but the reality is there's only room on the field for 11 guys at a time, and you've got 85 guys in a program. So we need you, somebody who knows the class, to highlight kind of the best guys, the guys that are going to get on the field the most, the guys that you think maybe have the most upside long term to be that all Big Ten player. Who are 2-3 guys that kind of are in that category for you?
Mark, going over the guys, Mark mentioned some of the ones that he expects to be on the field early. You look at Kalen Gervin, cornerback or defensive back, and you pretty much list any secondary guys listed as a defensive back now, not corner or safety because of the way they move guys around. But he's a guy that definitely has an opportunity to get on the field early. Cass Tech, obviously a big program, and he's the highest rated member of Michigan State's class, and he just signed, or he committed just earlier this month. So he's definitely a guy that could fit into the secondary, and you saw what Michigan State did this year. They weren't afraid to play young guys. Right. Even in defensive back, I mean, Josiah Scott started 11 games already. I think that's a record for any player number of starts as a true freshman or D'Antonio. So they're going to play the best guys. They'll give them a shot. Xavier Henderson, another defensive back out of Pickering Central. This guy did everything this year. He lined up at corner, at safety, at running back, at wide receiver. He returned punts. He returned kicks. The guy's all over the place. Like Gervin, he's an early enrollee. He'll get another, he'll be there in a couple weeks, start classes, start working out with the team. He'll get a shot. Maybe, I don't know, immediate impact, but some guys that could pay off. Darius Jefferson's a really interesting one. He's out of Muskegon. He was a quarterback this year. I think he rushed for 2,000 yards, I think it was, and passed for more than 1,000. I think he had 54 total touchdowns, Michigan Player of the Year. They don't even know where they're going to use him. And if you listen to Mark, I mean, he said we're bringing him in as a running back. But you could really, we know he can play linebacker, but we want to get him the ball, but there's a chance he could still play. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. That's what makes the guy entertaining or interesting, because he's just a lot of talent and athlete that they just have to figure out how to use him best. And then maybe, tight ends don't really come in that often and make an immediate impact.
Right.
But Trent Gillison, Xavier Henderson's teammate at Pickerington Central, another one of their 4-star kids, big guy, about 6'4", 240, really talented kid. Developed. I saw him at Michigan State's camp this summer, and granted, the competition he was being defended by in camp is not what you'll see at the Big Ten level, but good hands. He's not the fastest guy, but good hands, and he really thinks he's already pretty advanced in blocking. Michigan State tight end coach Jim Bowman said he's got a step ahead in that department just based on the offense that he runs in high school. So there's a few guys.
Funny, you mentioned the early the number of guys that got on the field as true freshmen this year. 19, was it? 13. It's funny because I think that there used to be a knock on this program, or something that held them back in recruiting, is that they hardly ever played true freshmen. So I think if you were a high-level recruit and you wanted to get on the field right away, that might have worked against Michigan State. I think other coaches probably would have been able to truthfully say, hey, you go there, you probably won't see the field as a freshman. But I think this last year has probably changed that a little bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think Mark talked about that, I can't even remember when, but I mean, basically the point was it used to be, Michigan State's defense, particularly, I think at this point it was talking about secondary, this is a while back, saying that it used to be if you were going to Michigan State as a true freshman, you knew the odds of you getting on the field on defense in the secondary was unlikely the first maybe 2 years. So you had to try to make a name for yourself in special teams. And those guys have done that this year and go down the list. But 13 true freshmen on the field, including a walk-on, Andre Welch, who came here to run track, and next thing you know, I mean, he's starting kickoff return. I mean, they really showed no hesitation to burn red shirts this year and to go with the guys they thought were the best at any given time. So yeah, I think that pays off for them in the recruiting process too, because you can sell results. I mean, any coach can go around the country and say, "Well, we'll play the best guys," but I mean, the results show that they gave them opportunities.
So, obviously, as we're standing here today, Michigan State's 9-3, headed to the Holiday Bowl, but the majority of this class was assembled after the 3-9 season and during an off-season that had a lot of other issues. I guess, what does it say that they were still able to put together what's, ranking-wise, a pretty standard class for them in the top 25, despite all that? I mean, what do you think that kind of says?
Well, I mean, it speaks to, it didn't hurt that they went 9-3 this year, to say the least. If you follow up 3-9 with 3-9, I mean, who knows? But they identified the kids they wanted. They built relationships with them. I mean, Xavier Henderson committed last September when Michigan State was like 1-0 or 2-0 and whatever it was. And he's, a sought-after kid, committed for 15 months or whatever it was. He never wavered. Guys like Theo Day, the quarterback they added, was last winter, and the same with Gillis. I mean, these guys, they had 15 guys, 15 of the 20 were committed before they began the season. And I mean, Michigan State was not widely, I don't remember anybody predicting 9-3 this year. So, I mean, I think there was naturally some thought like, well, if this goes south again, you could see the recruiting, impact the recruiting negatively, and it was just nothing. They had 15 guys in the fold, they added 5 more after the season started, and that was it. So, yeah.
My biggest question was about Detroit, because if you look at the off-field issue, the 3 players, 2 of them were from Detroit, and to me, I think the bigger issue was they parted ways with Curtis Blackwell. Neither side has really talked about it, but you get the feeling it probably wasn't incredibly amicable the way that happened. So I did wonder how that would affect Detroit recruiting. And they didn't really have anybody, but then right at the last minute, as you mentioned, Kalen Gervin, the top player in the state, Cass Tech kid, recruits them. So I'm not sure that their standings are the same at every Detroit high school, but I think that was a good sign for them, recruiting Detroit.
Yeah, and Mark was asked about that today, and he said that Thomas Wilcher, who's coach at Cass Tech, former Michigan player, he said, Thomas has always welcomed us into his school, and, we'll continue to recruit that area, basically. And, Michigan, the state of Michigan's recruiting, the kids this year weren't on par with the national level last year. There were more bigger names last year, guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Ambry Thomas. These guys that went to Michigan last year, the Detroit PSL kids. So there weren't the names there, but still, Michigan State went in and got. I mean, depending on what ranking service you want to look at, but they got a 4-star kid in Gervin, and there were plenty of other schools that wanted him, and he was formerly committed to Notre Dame. So I mean, shows that they can still go in there and get those guys.
All right, well, that'll do it for our signing day video. Thanks for watching. We've got plenty of coverage on mlive.com/Spartans.